Hi, gorgeous Taurus, and welcome to June 2021. This month is wild. I say that a lot, don't I? I say that a lot, but I'm like halfway through the reading, so you're like right in the middle of the pack in my conversations this month, and there's this really strong theme of self-honesty, and I think we're being honest with ourselves often, like. We think we know what we want, and like we're really being authentic. And yes, that everybody's different, so I can't really like make a statement for everybody. But there's always these little places where we're molding ourselves a little bit, we're pinching ourselves a little bit, we're like forcing things a little bit, and we have gotten so natural at it that we can't quite see it, right? And so I think self-honesty is like one of those practices that really just does take time, especially if you are coming out of a long season in life where you've been very people-pleasing, or you've been trying to do it all and wear every hat. And this month's really powerful because it's Mercury retrograde in Gemini in your neighboring sign. It's eclipse season, so we'll have our second eclipse on June 10th, solar eclipse in Gemini. These energies moving through Gemini for you, including the North Node, including this eclipse, including Mercury retrograde, are all about your house of self-value, self-worth, self-love. It's a really potent time. And the message that came up for Taurus was, you're not here to be a machine. You're not here to cut yourself into tiny slivers and fragments of yourself to like hand out to everybody. And in that spirit, what do you really want? What do you really want? What feels vulnerable and scary to ask for? So often I think the things that we really want, whether that's like a certain type of partnership, a certain creative road, a certain career road, a certain lifestyle road, like it's really vulnerable to truly ask for it, because we know once we start asking for it, things are going to change, right? Like locations are going to change, the people around us are going to change, relationships are going to change, routines are going to change, and we don't know like what exactly is going to change. We just know that things will change once we authentically know what we want and ask for it. And there is a raw vulnerability in doing that. There's also like, I think it's really interesting when we really take a stance. We're like, I'm not going to divide myself up into like 4 different pieces to try and serve all these different modalities, all these different people's needs for what they think they need of me or whatever. And we have like the brazenness to just be like, nope, this is who I am. This is just who I am. These are the things that I want to do. This is what works for me. That somehow we have to feel bad about really owning who we are and how we want to move through the world. And of course, I'm not saying like we should never like try and understand other people's perspectives or have interesting conversations or be open to shifting or moving in life, because obviously the goal isn't to be like, this is who I am and I'm just going to sit here and stay like this and it's everybody else's job to no. I mean, we're not talking about that. We're talking about like there's just a core stable sense of who we are and what we really want. And so often we undermine and we underplay the things that we truly want. We say, oh, well, yeah, it'd be nice, but maybe I'm just being selfish and wanting that. Or maybe like I'm being too stubborn about what I'm asking for in a relationship, right? Like, so I think that there's a real vulnerability in this homework assignment of asking that question, of really engaging with what it is you want, what you want that to look like, and being willing and curious to see what ends up coming out of that. Because I think that Brene Brown said that, you know, vulnerability is like going into a situation, saying what you need and saying what you need to say, asking what you need to ask, and not being able to control the outcomes, right? And not being in charge of everybody else's reactions or their needs. So there's vulnerability. I haven't even gotten into all the transits this month. So we have all that energy in Gemini. And then we're starting to move into Cancer season, a beautiful time of year, amazing for using your voice. So for Taurus, like this is a time where if you feel your throat kind of constricted about certain things, you may be noticing that theme comes up. This month as well, Saturn is going to be squaring Uranus in your sign in the middle of the month. And that conversation is really interesting because it goes back to, what do you really want? Page of Wands. This guy has been coming out a lot, and there's so much beginner energy in June. And Five of Wands. Ooh, interesting. Differences of viewpoint there. It's a very beginner energy month, and I think this refresh with the eclipse season and Mercury retrograde and the solstice coming into play here, and the energetic shifts that we've been going through the first half of this year, is creating kind of this, we're all figuring out who we are now. What do we want to do with our one wild and precious life now? Like, what does that look like now? This is such an important question to ask all the time throughout the year, but I think there's a potency to this reset time that is having us all kind of tender-hearted and soft bare feet outside, kind of figure out how to step through this world. And there's a real like tender underbelly to it all. Okay, 2 cards wanted to come out. 6 of Pentacles and 4 of Cups. Okay. This is like subtle. The cards here are somewhat sneaky and subtle. Not sneaky, but just subtle. There is something about a desire for harmony and recalibration that's coming up. So we start with Page of Wands, the beginner. He's not quite Fool energy. I haven't seen the Fool come out for a while. Where is that guy? But it's close. I think the Page of Wands is one of those cards that speaks to trying and going for it, shining bright and going for it. You know, Page of Wands is got a confident energy. Even though he's a page, he's at the beginning of the journey and he doesn't necessarily know all the things, you know. It's a very youthful energy, a very curious, playful energy. You may have that coming into your life, but I also think this is something we embody, is this kind of curious, ooh, what's next kind of energy. And we're opening with that. To me, that is there's a very honest energy, doing things that you want to do, creating what you want to create, being bold and colorful in that creative process. It's also what I was just talking about with you all before we started talking about the cards, with what do you really want? And is it scary to ask for? Is it scary to ask for? Do you say, oh yeah, I would ask for that, but I'll be too much. I'm being selfish. I should just calm down. I need to see things from another perspective. So what's really interesting for me is the Page of Wands is that wish. It's that desire. It's that longing. It's that true calling in all of its splendor and glory and all of its bright coloredness. And what happens is we notice where there are things in conflict with it, right? Like we notice parts of our lives that we are doing things that are undermining us and just keeping the peace to keep the peace. We're noticing where we actually feel really tied up and constricted and stuck in a container. And as much as, you know, we try to make it work or try to be positive thinking or we try to like morph ourselves into 100 different shapes, we feel this sense of conflict. Now, of course, depending on who you are and how this is all playing out, maybe that does show up as like a disagreement, right? But I think more importantly, it's something going on inside. It's what tarot is really for. It's for us to understand what's going on inside. It's for us to help navigate our internal systems. When we let ourselves see ourselves fully, hear those wishes, we will notice where there are aspects of our actions, of our connections, of our routines that don't feel in alignment with this. And doesn't necessarily mean we have to do everything, fix it all right now, but it's so powerful to just witness it and notice it and let it stand. Don't immediately go to like undermining the wish. Like, I just think about like if you wish for a certain type of partnership, let's say, and it's not really exactly the type of partnership you want, but you really care about the person. So every time you say no, when you say, I really want this type of relationship, then you say, oh, well, that's asking too much. Like, I should probably have a more open mind. I should probably be more flexible in my thinking. Like, that's just an example. Like, we're undermining what we truly want in the name of being open-minded. And I'm not saying it's not a good idea to be open-minded, hear other perspectives, but it's also equally important to know what we truly want. And this is not just about relationships. This is going to be about the creative work you want to do. Like, you may be a painter or a writer, and there are a set of rules about this is how you paint, this is how you do a composition, this is how you use color, this is how you use sentence structure. And the wish that you want to make is something that's outside of those constraints. And you say, oh, well, but I should probably just do it that way, because we're undermining ourselves. So there's a classic thing going on here with these two. Now, there's such a thing as finding new balance within all of this. If you're willing to really ask, what do I want now? Truly. Not just what I'm supposed to want. Not just what I've decided I'm going to put up with, but what do I truly want? There is a process by which we can start to incorporate that more into our real world. Now, there is a rebalancing going on here, and this month is a month of rebalancing. It's the month of the solstice. It's a month of a Mercury retrograde. It's the month of eclipses, which means that this is a time we look at those scales, we see where they've gotten really wonked out. I just came up with that phrase, wonked out. We see where they're wonked out. We notice, oh my God, this is way out of balance, right? And then we proceed to do little shifts. It's all about the little shifts. It's all about the inner witnessing. So I'm noticing here, there is a recalibration. So we go through maybe a bit of conflict, internal or otherwise, and we come to greater equilibrium. Now, that is going to require doing some shifting, doing some acknowledging, doing some listening to our bodies, doing some, journaling, having some vulnerable conversations, talking to our therapist or talking to close friends, figuring out ways to move these pieces around and start the honesty process with those around us and with ourselves, right? And it's often in the small details. It's not about overhauling your life and burning it to the ground. It's just about finding ways to start having more integrity with who you are inside truly. Now, fixed signs are going through a bit of a big ride as far as integrity. And that's because of Saturn and Uranus doing their thing. And there's a setup coming along here in June for fixed signs. So Four of Cups, for me, we often resist this card. We see it and what we immediately think of is impatience. But what I see here, 4 is about divine rest in between chapters of life. It's a culminating energy for the beginning. Like, you have your opening and you culminate so that you can keep moving forward. And the Four of Cups for me is a moment to sit, notice where you are now, listen into what that is giving you as far as information, and opening your heart to the cup that wants to come in. And that cup that comes in, it often doesn't look like what we presupposed it to be, right? Like, we've written our script. We've written, okay, this is how the good stuff has to come into my life. And we get really fixated on what we think that needs to be. But sometimes our greatest gifts, our greatest doors opening just come from beyond what I call the unimaginable horizon, those friendships that we never saw coming, those creative ideas we never saw coming, those opportunities we never saw coming that come in and guide us. And as you own more of your own inner page of wands, it makes it easier for your heart to open to those solutions coming through, to those answers coming through, to that cup coming to you. So you're being asked here to notice where you're in conflict with what you truly want and what's going on in the world, like in your world, in how you're acting, how you're treating yourself, where you're undermining your own true wishes, and allowing for there to be an adjustment process that helps you get more in alignment with that. And that's really the function of June, I would say. I think this honesty conversation, I think it's important to do it throughout the year, like every month, honestly, because I found, even just for myself, like things that were maybe true for me as far as how I was desiring to see things come about in January are not quite the same as in June. Like things shift, things change, like where I'm enjoying doing my art is changing all the time. So what I'm asking for and what I'm desiring in connecting with that inner vision and being channeling through in that artistic way changes. And what I'm asking to get connected to changes. So you are allowed to change your inner desires too. They don't have to stay static. And I think that's also important. So often we think, well, I'm going to decide that this is the lesson I'm going to learn. This is the type of thing I'm going to do. And I can't ever change that desire. Well, that desire is going to change. We're morphing human beings all the time. So it's always important to check in. And that's what I think this month is. And honestly, these cards are not about the high drama. They're about the subtle sense of like knowing and truth at the core. It's not about the external performance at all. So you're going to be finding that the answers are coming from a very quiet core place. And so the month itself may not feel like this big dramatic explosion, and yet so much can be changing on the inside. I'm going to be offering so much support over on my Patreon. I would love to see you there if you're looking for a great community of people, fantastic conversations, and just a connective place. I offer so much more support over there, but I will be obviously offering support here as well because I love being here. You can also find me on my website and on my Instagram. So I will see you in all of those places. I love you guys so much. Take good care of yourselves. It's all about that honesty and integrity. Yes, all the way. I love you guys.